The chamber was enormous, built to hold the representatives of 12 different alien species. Ambassador Patricia Morris stood at the center of it all, her hands clasped behind her back as she waited for the verdict. She had known this day would come. The signs had been clear for months. The Galactic Council no longer trusted humanity, and trust was everything in this part of space. The year was 2347, and humanity had been part of the Council for exactly 42 years. 4 decades of trying to fit in, trying to prove they belonged among the stars. It had not been enough. Above her, the Council representatives sat in their floating platforms, arranged in a perfect circle. Each platform held the designated speaker for their species. Patricia could see Overlord Kreskin of the Shathri, his reptilian features cold and unmoving. Beside him floated Prime Speaker Velshari, a being of living crystal that refracted light in strange patterns. Across from them sat Hive Queen Tixrala, her insected body clicking softly as she communicated with her home world through methods humans still did not understand. Kreskin spoke first. His voice translated through the chamber's systems into dozens of languages at once. Patricia heard it in English, but she knew every word was being heard differently by every being in the room. Humanity stands accused of 3 violations, the Shathri said. First, the development of weapons systems beyond the limits established by Council law. Second, territorial expansion into regions clearly marked as restricted space. Third, what we term aggressive cultural contamination of less developed species. Patricia said nothing. There was no point in arguing. The charges were true, at least from a certain perspective. Humanity had pushed boundaries. They always did. It was in their nature to explore, to expand, to test limits. But the Council did not see it that way. To them, humanity was unpredictable, dangerous. The Council has deliberated for 3 cycles, Kreskin continued. The verdict is unanimous. Humanity is expelled from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. All diplomatic privileges are revoked. All trade agreements are terminated. Your species will be confined to your current territories, a total of 27 colony worlds. Any attempt to expand beyond these boundaries will be met with military force. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Patricia felt her jaw tighten, but she kept her expression neutral. Around the chamber, the other council members watched her, waiting for a reaction. She would not give them one. Furthermore, the Overlord added, a military blockade will be established around human space. Council warships will ensure compliance with these terms. This is not negotiable. This is final. Patricia took a slow breath. The people of Earth will comply with this decision, she said, her voice steady. We ask only that humanitarian supplies be allowed through the blockade. Our outer colonies depend on trade for basic necessities. Velshari's crystalline form shifted, light dancing across her surface. Humanitarian concerns will be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. But make no mistake, Ambassador Morris, this is a quarantine. Your species has proven itself too volatile, too aggressive for civilized space. Perhaps in a few centuries, when you have learned restraint, we will reconsider. A few centuries. Patricia almost laughed at that. These beings measured time differently than humans did. A few centuries to them was nothing. To humanity, it was an eternity. She bowed slightly, the formal gesture of acknowledgement. Then she turned and walked out of the chamber, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. Behind her, the council members began to discuss other matters, already forgetting about the humans they had just condemned. Outside the chamber, Patricia's security detail waited. They fell into step beside her without a word. They had heard everything. The entire proceeding had been broadcast to Earth and every human colony. By now, the panic would already be starting. 3 days later, Captain Daniel Hayes stood on the bridge of the Liberty, watching the Council warships take up position around the outer colonies. His ship was small, built for exploration rather than combat. Against the massive vessels now surrounding human space, it would last about 30 seconds in a fight. How many ships? He asked, not taking his eyes off the view screen. Amy Peterson, his navigator, checked her console. I count 47 capital ships, sir, all heavy cruisers or larger. And those are just the ones we can see. There could be more in stealth mode. Roger Blake, the chief engineer, shook his head slowly. They're not taking any chances. That's enough firepower to glass every human world twice over. Lisa Grant, the security officer, leaned against her station. So what do we do now? Daniel had no answer. What could they do? Humanity had 27 worlds and a fleet that was designed for peacetime operations. The Council had thousands of worlds and a military that had been perfecting its craft for millennia. It was not even close to a fair fight. We follow orders, he said finally. We stay within our borders, we survive. That's all we can do right now. On Earth, the reaction was exactly what Patricia had feared. The news of the exile hit like a bomb. Stock markets crashed. Governments scrambled to respond. Protests erupted in major cities. The message was clear. Without access to Council technology and trade routes, human civilization was in serious trouble. President Victoria Shaw stood before the cameras, trying to project calm. We are working to establish alternative trade routes, she said. Our scientists are already developing solutions to replace Council technology. This is a setback, not an ending. Humanity has faced challenges before. We will overcome this one as well. But her words felt hollow, even to her. The truth was that humanity had become dependent on Council technology. Their ships ran on Council power systems. Their medical facilities used Council equipment. Their food production relied on Council agricultural methods. Cutting all of that off overnight was catastrophic. Below the Rocky Mountains, in a bunker that officially did not exist, Defense Secretary Kenneth Price was having a very different conversation. Around the table sat the most brilliant minds humanity had to offer. Scientists, engineers, military strategists, people who did not believe in giving up. Dr. Helen Scott spoke first. She was humanity's leading physicist, the woman who had helped reverse engineer the first Council power core 40 years ago. We need to accept the reality of our situation, she said. The Council has superior technology. They have superior numbers. If we try to fight them now, we lose. It's that simple. General Raymond Clark nodded. Agreed. That doesn't mean we do nothing. It means we get smart. We use the time they're giving us. Admiral Susan Carter of the Earth Defense Fleet leaned forward. What are you suggesting? Kenneth Price stood, walking to the wall where a star map glowed. They've quarantined us. Fine, let them, but they've also given us something valuable. They've underestimated us. They think we'll collapse without their help. They think we'll spend the next few centuries begging to be let back in. He turned to face the room. Instead, we use this time to build, not just to survive, but to surpass them. We take everything we've learned from the Council and we improve on it. We push our technology further. We explore regions of space they've ignored. We become so advanced, so powerful that when they finally notice us again, it will be too late. Helen Scott studied him carefully. You're talking about centuries of development, multiple generations of work. Yes, Kenneth said simply. I'm talking about playing the long game. The Council thinks in terms of millennia. We need to do the same. Our children and grandchildren will continue this work, and one day humanity will return to galactic society, not as supplicants begging for acceptance, but as equals or better. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Raymond Clark smiled. Let them forget about us, he said softly, while we remember everything about them. Kenneth nodded. Exactly. That meeting set the course for humanity's future. In secret facilities across human space, work began immediately. Project Nightfall, they called it. The plan was simple in concept, incredibly complex in execution. Humanity would go dark. They would make the Council believe they had regressed or destroyed themselves or simply faded away into irrelevance. Meanwhile, in the shadows, humanity would build an empire. 50 years passed. The Council's blockade remained in place, but it had become a token force. The initial fleet of 47 warships had been reduced to just 12. After all, what was the point of maintaining a large force around a species that had gone completely silent? No distress signals came from human space. No attempts to break the quarantine. No communications at all. Sensors showed minimal activity on the human worlds. Some energy signatures, but nothing that suggested a thriving civilization. To the Council, it looked like humanity had either destroyed itself through civil war or regressed to a pre-industrial state. The Galactic Council had other problems to worry about anyway. The Shathri and the Luminar had been feuding for decades over mining rights in the Outer Rim. Several smaller species were demanding more representation in council decisions. Piracy was on the rise in the frontier sectors. Humanity was old news, a cautionary tale sometimes mentioned in discussions about admitting new species to the Council. But far beyond the Council's sensor networks, in regions of space they had dismissed as too dangerous or too distant to bother with, something remarkable was happening. Forge Station Alpha was not on any official map. It existed in a nebula so thick with radiation that standard Council sensors could not penetrate it. The station itself was enormous, larger than any human sit. Millions of people lived and worked there, all dedicated to a single purpose, making humanity stronger. Engineer Paul Martinez walked through the construction bay, watching as the latest prototype took shape. It was a ship unlike anything the Council had ever seen. The hull was coated with a material that absorbed sensor waves rather than reflecting them. The engines produced almost no heat signature. To any Council vessel, this ship would be invisible. "How many more can we build this year?" Paul asked the foreman beside him. 20, maybe 25 if we push it, the man replied. "We've streamlined the process. Every ship we build teaches us how to build the next one faster." Paul nodded. 25 ships per year did not sound like much, but they had been at this for 50 years. The Ghost Fleet, as they called it, now numbered over 1,000 vessels. 1,000 ships that the Council did not know existed. In another section of the station, Laura Kim was making a different kind of breakthrough. Her laboratory was small compared to the construction bays, but the work happening inside it was just as important. "We've done it," she said to her team, unable to keep the excitement from her voice. "Quantum entanglement communication, instantaneous across any distance and completely undetectable by Council sensors." One of her assistants looked skeptical. "The Council said that was impossible." "Their best scientists have been trying for thousands of years." Laura smiled. "The Council stopped trying. They decided it was impossible and moved on to other things. We didn't have that luxury. We needed it to work, so we made it work." The implications were enormous. With this technology, every human ship, every colony, every outpost could communicate instantly without any signal that Council sensors could intercept. Humanity's hidden empire would be able to coordinate its actions perfectly while remaining completely invisible. Commander Jack Murphy was testing the stealth technology firsthand. His ship, the Nightfall, was deep inside Council space, closer to their core worlds than any human vessel had been in 50 years, and they had no idea he was there. "Shathri patrol passing to starboard," his sensor operator reported. "Distance, 2,000 meters." Jack watched the alien warship drift past on the view screen. It was close enough that he could see the individual weapon ports on its hull. One scan, one lucky sensor ping, and they would be caught. But the scan never came. The Shathri ship continued on its patrol route, completely unaware of the human vessel just a few kilometers away. "Mark another successful test," Jack said quietly. "Take us to the next waypoint. Let's see how close we can get to their shipyards." This was the pattern. Human ships would slip into Council territory, map their defenses, catalog their technology, and slip away again without ever being detected. Every piece of information was sent back to Intelligence Officer Corinne White, who was building a database that the Council would find terrifying if they knew it existed. Corinne sat in her office, reviewing the latest reports. She knew more about the Council species than most Council members knew about each other. She knew their languages, their cultural taboos, their political structures. She knew which species trusted each other and which were secretly preparing for conflict. She knew the exact specifications of their weapons systems and the locations of their strategic reserves. Most importantly, she knew their weaknesses. The Shathri relied too heavily on energy weapons. Their ships would be vulnerable to weapons that disrupted power distribution. The Luminar had incredible defensive shields but poor offensive capabilities. The Tick's hive mind communication could be jammed with the right frequency. Every species had blind spots, and Corinne was documenting all of them. 100 years passed, then 200. The galaxy moved on, barely remembering that humanity had ever existed. The quarantine zone around the old human colonies remained in place, but now it was just 3 ships on rotating patrol. No one expected anything to happen there. On New Terra, one of the hidden human colonies, mathematician Gregory Allen was revolutionizing faster than light travel. The Council's jump drives were based on principles discovered thousands of years ago. They worked, but they were inefficient. Gregory had found a better way. The Council calculates jump coordinates using linear mathematics, he explained to a group of students. It works, but it's slow. We're using quantum probability fields instead. Our jump drives can calculate routes 3 times faster and use half the energy. A student raised her hand. Does that mean our ships are faster than Council ships? Gregory smiled. Not just faster. We can jump to places they can't reach. Regions of space with high gravitational turbulence that make their calculations impossible. To us, those are just numbers to crunch. On Olympus Station, biologist Nancy Ford was pushing the boundaries of human potential itself. Her work was controversial even among humans. Genetic enhancement, cybernetic implants, neural augmentation. She was creating soldiers who were faster, stronger, and smarter than any baseline human. The Council has rules against this kind of modification, one of her colleagues said. They consider it unethical. Nancy did not look up from her work. The Council has the luxury of ethics because they're not in danger. We don't. Our soldiers need every advantage we can give them because if we ever have to fight, we'll be outnumbered 1,000 to 1. The education system had been completely restructured. Every child born in human space learned 3 Council languages before the age of 10. They studied alien psychology, galactic history, and advanced sciences that the Council had never bothered to explore fully. By the time a human reached adulthood, they knew more about the Council species than most Council members knew about each other. Brandon Cole taught tactical analysis at the military academy on New Earth. His students were the best of the best, children who had shown exceptional intelligence and strategic thinking from an early age. Today's lesson was about Council military doctrine. The Shathri favor overwhelming force, he explained, showing holographic projections of past battles. They believe that superior numbers can solve any problem. This makes them predictable. If you can force them to divide their forces, you can defeat them in detail. A student raised her hand. What about the Luminar? Their shields are supposed to be unbreakable. Brandon smiled. Nothing is unbreakable. The Luminar shields work by dispersing energy across their crystalline structure, but dispersion has limits. Hit them with enough concentrated force in a single point and the whole system overloads. Or better yet, use weapons they've never encountered before. Their shields are designed to counter known threats. Unknown threats pass right through. This was how humanity prepared for the future. Every weakness documented. Every counter strategy developed. Every student trained to think not like a human, but like the enemy they might one day face. On the mining colony of Titan's Gate, workers extracted resources from asteroids that the Council had deemed too difficult to reach. The gravitational anomalies in this region made conventional mining impossible, but humanity had developed new technologies specifically to work in these harsh conditions. Foreman Gary Nelson watched as massive drilling platforms operated in conditions that would crush Council equipment. "How much are we pulling out this month?" he asked his assistant. 15,000 tons of rare elements, came the reply. "Enough to build another 100 ships." Gary nodded with satisfaction. Resources were the foundation of everything. Without raw materials, they could not build ships. Without ships, they could not protect their growing empire. The Council had access to thousands of mining worlds, but humanity had learned to extract more from a single asteroid field than the Council got from an entire planet. Efficiency had become a religion among humans. Every process was optimized. Every resource was used to its fullest potential. There was no waste because they could not afford waste. The Council had the luxury of abundance. Humanity had learned to do more with less. Dr. Philip Turner ran the medical research facility on Hope Station. His specialty was extending human lifespan without sacrificing quality. The original leaders of Project Nightfall, people like Helen Scott and Raymond Clark, had died long ago, but their knowledge had been preserved, and their descendants continued their work. "We've made another breakthrough," Philip told his team during the morning briefing. The new cellular regeneration treatment can extend healthy lifespan to approximately 200 years. We're testing it now on volunteer subjects. One of his researchers looked concerned. Is this ethical? We're changing what it means to be human. Philip considered the question carefully. The council species live for different lengths of time, some for only 50 years, others for thousands. Is it unethical for us to choose how long we live? I don't think so. Besides, experience matters. The longer our people live, the more knowledge they can accumulate. That gives us an advantage. The ethical debates were constant. Genetic modification, cybernetic enhancement, artificial intelligence, weapons of terrible power. Humanity was pushing boundaries that the Council considered forbidden, but those boundaries had been set by species that were comfortable and safe. Humanity was neither. Sarah Hughes commanded the intelligence ship Discovery, one of dozens conducting long-term surveillance on Council worlds. Her mission was simple: watch and learn. Her ship had been in orbit around the Shathri home world for 6 months, completely invisible to their sensors. Their fleet is aging, she reported during her weekly communication with headquarters. I'm seeing ships that are over a century old still in active service. Their maintenance protocols are minimal. They're not expecting a fight. The reply came instantly through the quantum communication system. Noted, continue observations. Any signs of new weapon development? None, Sarah confirmed. Their research budget has been cut every year for the past decade. They're spending more on entertainment and luxury goods than on military innovation. It was the same story across Council space. Comfortable civilizations that had forgotten what it meant to struggle. They had maintained peace for so long that they had lost the ability to prepare for war. Humanity, meanwhile, had spent 3 centuries doing nothing but preparing. 300 years after the exile, Admiral Christopher Lee reviewed the latest census data. He was the great-grandson of an admiral who had served during the original quarantine. The legacy of that time had been passed down through his family, and now he carried the weight of humanity's secret empire on his shoulders. 140 colony worlds, 70 billion people, a fleet of over 15,000 warships, every one of them invisible to Council sensors. Research facilities that had pushed human technology centuries beyond what the Council considered possible, and the Council had no idea any of it existed. Christopher walked to the window of his office, looking out at the space station that served as humanity's military headquarters. Ships came and went constantly, all of them using the stealth technology that had become standard across the fleet. Out there in the darkness between stars, humanity had built something the Council had never imagined possible. His aide entered the office. "Sir, we've received another report from Deep Reconnaissance. The Council's technology has not advanced significantly in the past century. They're still using the same weapon systems, the same shield designs, the same tactical doctrines." Christopher nodded slowly. "They've become complacent. When you're at the top for long enough, you forget that someone might be climbing up behind you. Should we consider revealing ourselves, sir? We're strong enough now. We could demand they lift the quarantine." Christopher shook his head. "Not yet. Let them stay comfortable. Let them think we're gone. Every year they ignore us is another year we get stronger. When we do reveal ourselves, I want there to be absolutely no doubt about where we stand." Then, in the year 2647, exactly 300 years after the exile, everything changed. The Void Swarm came from beyond the galactic rim. No one knew where they originated. No one understood their biology or their motivations. They simply appeared one day, their organic ships spreading across Council space like a disease. The first contact happened at an outer research station operated by the Luminar. Scientists there had been studying dark matter when their sensors picked up something unprecedented. Ships, if they could be called that, made of living tissue. They moved through space without engines, fed on stellar radiation, and reproduced by consuming matter and converting it into more of themselves. The research station sent a warning, then went silent. When Council warships arrived to investigate, they found nothing but debris and a cloud of organic matter that their sensors could barely classify. The station had been completely consumed. 30,000 Luminar scientists gone. The Council mobilized its fleet. Surely this was just another primitive species that had stumbled into space. A show of force would send them running back to whatever dark corner of the galaxy they came from. The Council had dealt with aggressive newcomers before, but the swarm was not like anything they had faced before. The first major battle took place near the outer reaches, where the Council's Fifth Fleet engaged a swarm formation. Admiral Treshful of the Shathri commanded the fleet personally, confident that his 300 ships would make quick work of the organic vessels. Energy weapons scored direct hits on swarm ships, burning holes through their hulls. But instead of dying, the ships absorbed the energy and grew larger. The wounds closed within seconds, the tissue regenerating faster than it could be damaged. Treshful switched to kinetic weapons. Railguns and missile systems pounded the swarm vessels, tearing chunks from their hulls. This worked better but not well enough. For every swarm ship destroyed, 2 more seemed to appear, and they were learning. Each attack pattern the Council used was less effective the second time. The swarm adapted in real time. The Fifth Fleet fought for 12 hours before Treshful gave the order to retreat. He had lost half his ships. The swarm had lost nothing that mattered. Every vessel destroyed was quickly replaced by new growth from the surviving ships. The retreat turned into a rout. Swarm ships pursued the fleeing Council vessel, consuming damaged ships and using the matter to create more of themselves. By the time the survivors reached Council space, the swarm had tripled in size. The Council's first response was confident. They had the most powerful military in known space. They had faced threats before and always emerged victorious. But the swarm was different. Energy weapons that could destroy any Council ship simply made the swarm vessels grow stronger. Kinetic weapons damaged them, but they regenerated faster than they could be hurt. Nuclear weapons were absorbed and converted into fuel for their expansion. Human surveillance ships watched the battles from a safe distance, recording everything. The stealth technology that had served humanity so well for 3 centuries now allowed them to observe without being detected. What they saw was both fascinating and terrifying. Captain Linda Shaw commanded the observation vessel Shadow's Edge. Her ship had been tracking the swarm since its first appearance, following at a distance that kept them safe while still gathering data. "They're not just mindless destroyers," she reported to Admiral Lee. "There's intelligence behind this. They're studying Council tactics, adapting their biology to counter each weapon type. It's like fighting an enemy that learns from every mistake." Christopher studied the data carefully. "Any weaknesses?" "Possibly," Linda replied. "They seem vulnerable to weapons that attack on multiple levels simultaneously. The Council is using energy or kinetic one at a time. But if you hit them with both, plus something that disrupts their cellular structure, they can't adapt fast enough. The problem is the Council doesn't have weapons like that." "But we do," Christopher said quietly. Within 6 months, the swarm had consumed 12 Council worlds. The Shathri lost their outer colonies. The Luminar watched in horror as their beautiful crystal cities were dissolved and absorbed. The Ticks found their hive structures invaded and corrupted, turned into breeding grounds for swarm creatures. The death toll was staggering. Billions of beings consumed, entire civilizations erased. The Council tried every weapon in their arsenal. Biological warfare, which the swarm absorbed and used to grow stronger. Gravitational weapons, which the swarm learned to navigate around. Even experimental quantum disruptors, which worked for exactly 1 battle before the swarm adapted. Humanity continued to watch. Some argued they should help immediately. Others insisted they should wait, let the Council weaken itself further before revealing their strength. Christopher listened to all the arguments but held his position. Timing was everything. "If we reveal ourselves too soon, the Council might still have enough strength to see us as a threat," he explained to his senior staff. "We need them desperate enough to accept our terms without question, but not so desperate that there's nothing left to save." It was a cold calculation, but Christopher had been trained his entire life for this moment. 300 years of preparation had led to this. Humanity would return to galactic society, but they would return on their own terms. Council was facing extinction, and they knew it. In the council chambers, now relocated to a heavily defended fortress world, the debate was desperate. "We need new strategies," Velshari insisted, her crystalline voice taking on harmonics of fear. "The swarm adapts to everything we use against them. We need weapons they have never seen before." Kreskin, now ancient and scarred from battles he had barely survived, made a suggestion that would have been unthinkable a year ago. "What about the humans?" The chamber fell silent. Most council members had forgotten humanity even existed. Those who remembered them thought of them as a failed species, long since collapsed or regressed. "The humans were unpredictable," Kreskin continued. "Aggressive, creative in ways we found disturbing. Perhaps they developed unconventional weapons before they fell. It might be worth investigating their ruins." The motion passed, though no one expected much from it. A single scout ship was authorized to enter the old quarantine zone and see what remained of humanity. It was a long shot, but the council was running out of options. Junior explorer Threxnel of the Shathri drew the assignment. He was young, ambitious, and considered this mission a waste of time. Still, orders were orders. His scout ship, the Silent Observer, crossed into the quarantine zone with minimal expectations. "Run a full-spectrum scan," he ordered his crew. "Let's see what's left of the humans." The sensors swept across the region where 27 human colony worlds had once existed. The results made no sense. "Sir, I'm not detecting anything," the sensor operator reported. "No life signs, no energy signatures, no debris fields. It's completely empty," Threxnel frowned. "That's impossible. Even if they destroyed themselves, there would be wreckage. Expand the scan range. Maybe they migrated to another system within the zone." They searched for 3 days. Every system that had once held human colonies was now empty. Not abandoned, empty. The planets were still there, but they showed no signs that anyone had ever lived on them. No cities, no infrastructure, nothing. "It's like they were erased," the sensor operator said quietly. Threxnel was about to order a return to council space when the Silent Observer's systems began to fail. One by one, every system on the ship went offline. Engines, weapons, communications, life support. The crew panicked as emergency lighting kicked in. "What's happening?" Threxnel demanded. "Unknown, sir. Something is accessing our systems. It's not a virus. It's like the ship is being controlled remotely." Then the main view screen activated, showing a face that Threxnel recognized from the historical archives. A human face. Admiral Christopher Lee looked out at them from the screen, and when he spoke, it was in perfect Shathri, with no translation delay. "You abandoned us 300 years ago. You called us dangerous and unpredictable. You were right to be afraid, but you were wrong about what we would become." Threxnel found his voice. "Where are you? How are you doing this?" Christopher smiled, and there was no warmth in it. "We're everywhere. We've been watching you for centuries, learning your secrets, surpassing your technology, building an empire in the darkness while you convinced yourselves we had disappeared." The Silent Observer's sensors suddenly came back online, and what they showed made Threxnel's blood run cold. 12 massive warships had appeared around his vessel. They had not jumped in or decloaked. They had simply appeared, as if they had been there all along and only now chose to be seen. Each ship was larger than anything in the Council fleet. Their designs were alien, incorporating technology Threxnel could not even begin to understand. Weapons systems that his ship's computer could not classify. Power signatures that exceeded anything he had ever seen. "Now you face extinction from the swarm," Christopher continued, "and you come looking for help from the species you threw away. The question is, what are you willing to offer in exchange for our assistance?" Threxnel struggled to process what he was seeing. Humanity had not died out. They had not regressed. They had been building, planning, preparing for 300 years. And now they had technology that made the Council look primitive. The human warships around his vessel were works of art and terror combined. Their hulls were smooth, almost organic in appearance, yet clearly metal. Weapon systems protruded at angles that seemed mathematically impossible. Energy readings fluctuated in patterns his computer could not analyze. "How long have you been watching us?" Threxnel asked, his voice barely steady. Christopher's expression did not change. "Since the day you exiled us. We've had ships in Council space continuously for 300 years. We know your fleet dispositions. We know your supply lines. We know your military doctrines and your tactical responses. We've studied every council species so thoroughly that we understand you better than you understand yourselves." "That's impossible," Threxnel protested.